we are pitching our tents on the lawns of Manchester United, because it's being reported this morning, and of course when Alex Crook reported it, we know it's true. Bruno Fernandes is set to stay at the football club. It's a no, but thanks all the same to Al Hilal in Saudi Arabia, and a no to reportedly 700 grand a week to move to the Saudi club Al Hilal. After having various consultations with his representatives and his family, he is set to stay at Manchester United. So with him staying, with Cunha coming, and now reportedly Mbuemo arriving from Brentford, how does that set you up? How does that set you up going into next season? Steve's a big United fan who wants to join us, Simon, and Stephen has done just that. Steve, good morning.
Morning, Jim. Morning, Simon. How you guys doing, all right?
Good, thank you, mate. You're first up. How do you feel about this? Are you happy that Bruno stays?
Well, the point I want to make, Jim, first a couple of points, if that's okay, is that I think it's interesting, the headline that he's agreed to stay at United. I think it's more that he's actually just agreed to turn down Al Hilal. I don't really think it ultimately means he's definitely going to stay. I think it would, it always subject to the bids that come in. I think obviously if he's going to, what he's saying is he wants to play at the top level, whether that be with us or with anybody else. So my view is that I'm not particularly convinced that he's staying. I think it's more that he's definitely sure he doesn't want to go to Al Hilal. So I think we'll kind of see how that plays out. I think with regards to the sign-ins, he must be at least slightly encouraged about the actions that the club has taken with Cunha, and if the rumours are to be true about Mbuemo as well. I doubt that it will end there. I think that we all know that players got to come in. So that's just my thinking on that. Really, I'm not 100% sure that Bruno would still be there. Come the end of the windows, or the second window as it is this year. One last point to mention, guys, is that as a United fan, I'm sure a lot of Reds are thinking this. We've been through a little bit of a roller coaster with it. The whole is Bruno going, is he staying? But we probably, in the cold light of day, we probably do need to tell him if a good offer comes in. He's never been much of a money guy, but he's been our standout player for the last 5 or 6 seasons. If we're going to have a reset at the club, which I think we all agree we need, probably Bruno ought to be moved on. I think starting the season with Bruno, starting the season with Højlund as the main striker, starting the season with Onana. If we don't change those 3 fundamentals, I really can't see much of a reset.
Steve, you've got me thinking, actually. I'm going to put that to Simon. The wording we have regards Fernandes, and Alex Crook's been working on this, Simon, is that he's rejected the move to Saudi. Okay, fine. Fernandes wants to continue his career in a top European league. And Amorim made it clear he doesn't want to lose his captain this summer.
Well, this is a top European league, isn't it? It is arguably the top European league. Okay, it's not throwing out Champions League winners, but economically, competitively, and probably perception-wise, it's the best league in world football. I think that it's all well and good throwing babies out with bathwaters, but you've got to be able to make foundations. If you want to be able to reset, you've got to have something to reset around.
Yes.
And you can't take out some of the cornerstones. Now, going back to the observation, we don't know. If Man United had been offered £100 million, which I sincerely doubt, if they'd been offered £100 million and they were prepared to redeploy that all the way back to the coach, then the coach might have a different view. The player himself, if he's been offered £700,000 a week, which I sincerely doubt. I mean, we've had Saudis on here. We had Turkey Al Sheikh come on here getting quite uppity, and quite rightly so, when the media world was ruminating that he was going to pay X amount of £100 million for a fight. And he said, we're not stupid over here.
Sure.
We know the value of something.
Yeah.
We'll pay over the top to get things moving, but we won't pay over the top and get liberties taken with us, to paraphrase him. But I think Fernandes, if there was £100 million on the table offer from Saudi, I think it would be difficult for Man United not to take.
Right, I'm with you. And I'm getting messages this morning from the Saudi end of things saying the figures are vastly exaggerated.
And I agree with that, and I've always agreed with that. The other side of the equation is, what it is reassuring to hear is a professional footballer that's already very highly paid is prepared to, at a certain stage in his career, put the footballing opportunity before the financial one, because the financial one's already there. They've already got generational wealth money.
Yeah.
So he's now looking at it going, I'm 30 years of age, I'm a long time retired, I want to play the best standard of football that I can play. So people should take some solace from that not every aspect of every peculiarity of football starts with a pound sign in front of it.
Sure thing. Where was it? David is another United fan. There's a whole stack of you wanting to come on and join us. David, I'll go to you first. I mean, if Bruno stays, and it's likely he is going to stay now, but with no European football to look forward to, David, is this a vote of confidence for United's reputation this morning, do you think, as an iconic club?
Man United, Jim, is an iconic club. That's never been in doubt. I'm actually en route to Anfield to see Bruce Springsteen as a United fan, which is quite ironic. But I'm really encouraged this morning, Jim, because Bruno wants to stay. Simon said 2 weeks ago it was the best thing he said in a long time, and I agree with so much that he says that in a business you've got to trust your instincts, you've got to trust your leadership, and you've got to strip it right back to the beginning and start again. And that's what United are doing. They'll get rid of everything in that business, everything in that club that's not working needs to go, and we rebuild it with workers, we rebuild it with people that buy into it, and if they didn't buy into it, they need to go. Bruno has never been in question in terms of buying in and loving the club. Cunha wants to come, and Bueno wants to come. Let's get players in there. As Neville and Beckham and these guys, I said at the weekend, the people that are there just now are disrespecting the badge. Garnacho with his tweets, other guys coming out and saying things. That's why I would give guys like Højlund another chance with better players around them, because they haven't disrespected the badge and they want to work hard and fight for it.
Oh, David, some good points in there. That's music to your ears, isn't it? A call like that.
Yeah, I mean, the question about Højlund is whether he's good enough.
Yes.
And of course the answer will be, if you put him amongst better players, then he might get better. But I think he has been so poor that there was a question about him. The challenge for them is, if you can't, Højlund's probably getting carried on their books at 40 million quid. They'll be lucky to get someone bid 40 million quid for him, so they might have to think about keeping him. But I think he's absolutely right. You take out those that you don't want, that clearly don't want to be there, and you rebuild.
Yeah. I'm going to finish with Andy, who's been waiting. Andy, good morning. What does this tell us about United at this time that Bruno reportedly is set to stay? Cunha has already arrived, and Mbeumo could well be on the way. Good morning, Andy.
Hello, chaps. Good to speak to you again. I spoke to you last week after the Europa League final, or the week before, or whatever, when I was a bit heartbroken. I'm a bit torn between my head and my heart, really. I mean, I love Bruno. I really love Bruno. I know he has his histrionics and stuff, and people get at him, but he has dragged us through the mud the last couple of years. You know, he's an absolute shining light in our team. But that being said, I still believe we need to clear the decks and have a hard reset on this club. It's got so stale, this team. It's just horrible to watch, and he's looking like Steven Gerrard, like dragging his terrible team through and never winning, the big titles. And I don't want to see that for him. I think he needs a fresh start as well.
Yeah, good points, Andy. I mean, the only way is up, mate, isn't it? I mean, it has to be that. Simon, should Manchester United fans like Andy and others put their absolute faith in Sir Jim Ratcliffe? You always tell us, yes, of course, he has made gazillions because he's a brilliant businessman. He's in situ. Should they back whatever he does?
Well, the object of the aim is to try and support things. I mean, clearly they've not made great inroads, and it's difficult to support what they've currently thrown out. I did think it was ridiculous last summer. I've repeated this 100 times about the new contract for Ten Hag, not just alighting upon Ten Hag and staying with him, but giving him a new contract. I thought was absurd. The pursuit of Ashworth has turned around and has been ridiculous for them. Amorim's appointment has done nothing for them in currency terms. Jim Ratcliffe's interviews have done nothing for him.
Yes,
in terms of the things that he said and subsequently been discredited for. So right now, I think people should try to be supportive, because the alternative is what? To be destructive. But one should do it with a degree of reservation, because you've got nothing to support right now. You've got a team that's not very good. You've got an ownership that you dislike anyway. You've got a new ownership model that's part ownership model that is not running the football club, is working tandem with the Glazers, who are still calling the shots. So unless you can see something that's worth supporting, I think you should be critical without being disrespectful.
Right. Alex Crook, our chief football correspondent, is living up to his billing big time. Alex, good morning to you. The news has come through to you then that Bruno stays. Does that necessarily mean that he stays long term at Manchester United, Alex?
Yeah, good morning, Jim. Good morning, Simon. I think that's a really good question, because the information that we're getting is that Bruno Fernandes has rejected that £700,000 a week offer from Saudi Arabia. I think after consulting with his family, he realised this wasn't the right move for him at this moment in time. I'm sure down the line, maybe even after the World Cup in America, that Saudi will come calling again. He wants to continue his career in Europe and playing in a top European league. Now, of course, Manchester United can't offer Champions League football next season, so I think there would be a decision making again if a Bayern Munich, who've shown interest in the past, or a Real Madrid or Barcelona came calling. For now, though, I think United fans can be fairly confident Bruno Fernandes will still be their captain come the start of the season. And this is victory for Ruben Amorim as well, because he's been quite public. He's the only one from the United hierarchy who has spoken publicly about his desire for Bruno to stay. He said, I've looked into the whites of Bruno's eyes. I don't think he wants to leave Manchester United. We don't want to lose him. And that may have been a different tack from Ineos had a £100 million offer been made. So at the moment, I think Ruben Amorim is quite happy. We know they've signed Matheus Cunha. We're going to talk about Bryan Mbeumo as well. And my understanding is that Bruno staying doesn't affect their pursuit of him. And I think it's been quite an encouraging start to the window for Manchester United after a dismal season.
What kind of money are we talking about from Mbeumo, from Brentford, Alex?
Well, this is really interesting because when I first reported that Brentford were open to offers for Mbeumo earlier this year, 50 million plus was the price tag suggested to me. That's gone up. £60 million now is what Brentford will be looking for. They've seen United pay £62.5 million for Matheus Cunha. Mbeumo is a year younger than him. He scored more Premier League goals this season than Cunha. So I think they're going to say to United, look, you paid £62.5 million for Cunha. We want a similar fee for Bryan Mbeumo. Crucially for United, we reported this yesterday, he wants to go to Old Trafford. Again, despite the fact there's no European football, Mbeumo is up for this move. And I think it'd be fascinating, and Danny Murphy would no doubt have a view on this. How does Ruben Amorim fit Cunha, Mbeumo and Fernandes all into the same team?
It's funny, Alex just talking about Mbeumo now. Not that long ago, Simon, we were holding the so-called BMW trio at Brentford and highlighting them. And they were made up of Said Benrahma, Bryan Mbeumo and Ollie Watkins. It's incredible in the course of a few seasons.
Sure.
It's totally dismantled.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming, and obviously Ivan Toney in the mix as well, I'm assuming that the reasons why Brentford have been prepared to accept or look towards offers is the player's indicated he's not going to sign a new contract. So what Brentford want for him and what they might be able to get for him, given the fact that they've clearly had a resolution in their mind that they're going to have to do something with this player and it involves him being sold, may dictate some of the fee. And given the fact the player's already expressed his preference, then it would come down to what the player might have to say about how much money Brentford are able to rinse out of the equation. Because if Man United stick hard on what they think they were prepared to pay, then Brentford might not have as many options as it currently looks like they may.
Sure. Let's steer off Manchester United for a moment, Alex. News came through to me late last night that it's a 3-year deal for Ryan Mason at West Brom, West Brom's new head coach. That's a great deal for him. And he's out of Tottenham as a result of that, being assistant to Ange, of course, in recent times. What's happening with Ange still remains up for debate. Wasn't that long ago, a fair amount of time, 2017, I remember Ryan Mason stopping by and speaking to me here at talkSPORT because he'd been through one hell of a time. He was forced to retire at 26 as a player after fracturing his skull against Chelsea. You'll remember that clash of heads with Gary Cahill. And Mason opened up about that dreadful experience.
I feel like I've got the body to go and play on for a very long time. I'm a fit lad and I eat right. I do the right things outside of football as well. So I still think I've got another 10 years in the game. So yeah, I'm looking forward to coming back, and I do strongly believe that my best years are still to come.
Alex, he's saying there that his best years are still to come. Well, obviously, time was called on his career as a player, and he's gone into coaching, and now he has his big chance, doesn't he?
He does, and as you say, a 3-year contract is a big one for a Championship manager. When you look at the average lifespan of a manager in that division, I think he's bided his time. Ryan Mason, he's had a couple of interim spells in charge at Tottenham when various high-profile managers have departed. He's very highly regarded. The players seem to enjoy his work. He's a modern-day training ground coach, which is what I think a lot of clubs are leaning towards now. But it's not an easy gig at West Bromwich Albion. Obviously, Tony Mowbray, their experience in the Championship, went back there at the end of last year, couldn't get them into the playoffs. I'm not sure there's going to be lots of money for Ryan Mason to spend, so I think he's going to have to rely on that coaching ability. His contract was up anyway at Tottenham this summer, but I do wonder, you mentioned Ange Postecoglou there, is this an indication that big change is coming at the top, that Ryan Mason has decided to jump before maybe the coaching staff is torn up once again?
What do you think of that? Is Alex right? Should we sit and in any way establish some kind of link here, or seek to establish a link here?
No, I wouldn't think so. I mean, Ryan Mason wasn't a part of Ange Postecoglou's coaching staff because Ange Postecoglou chose him. He was there in situ, and Ange Postecoglou incorporated him.
Yeah.
I would suspect that his ambitions have always lent itself to an opportunity as a first-team manager. I think he said it himself in previous situations when he stood in for interim. He's talked about wanting to be a manager. West Bromwich Albion is a decent club. They're becoming ensconced now in the Championship. That's not where they want to be. They've been there for 4 years now. They've got no parachute payment, so they're not going to be able to compete with some of the economic powerhouses that are either coming down or already there because they don't have the resources, perhaps, to be able to do that.
How do you view this appointment?
I don't know. I mean, I've seen nothing from Ryan that gives me the feeling that he's a great leader and a powerful character, but maybe you don't need that now. Maybe you don't need these Churchillian speeches to players to get them up and motivate them and get people and be authoritative, and maybe he'll grow into the job. And maybe there's caveats, this 3-year contract, because to me, giving an untried manager a 3-year contract means that you're potentially put a hostage to fortune a year into the job, because if he doesn't work out the way you want him to, you've got liabilities. And so I'm assuming that there'll be caveats in the contract that prevent the club from having to pay big sums out if the manager doesn't work.
Having said that, though, Simon, when he came in off the back of Mourinho at Tottenham, he did galvanise the place and got them together a bit. Well, that could be argued.
Yeah, to a degree. I mean, I know there was a big dog and pony show made about the fact that he had some coherency in some of the things he was saying, and they got a couple of results, and then reality came knocking again.
Yeah. Alex, another player on the move, but it would seem on the move back here, is Alexander Mitrovic. Are we led to believe that he could well be out of Saudi Arabia and heading back to the Premier League?
I think he'd like to, Jim. Obviously, maybe one of the latest players to discover the grass is not always greener over in Saudi Arabia. I know our colleague Ben Jacobs has mentioned Manchester United as a possible destination. I think at the moment I would say that is unlikely, but obviously he's proven in the Premier League. He was excellent for Fulham in particular, so I don't think it would be too fanciful to suggest that he'll have suitors. A bit of other news, actually, Jim, that's just reaching us, and this is via our colleague David Ornstein in The Athletic, and I think Simon will be interested in this. Jadon Sancho to go back to Manchester United at the end of June. We know that they've been negotiating Chelsea to try and get him to take a pay cut to sign permanently. They've not been able to reach an agreement on that, so they're going to pay a £5 million clause to send him back to Manchester United, where clearly he doesn't have a future. West Ham have been mentioned as potential suitors for Jadon Sancho, but the issue they've got, and Chelsea have found this, he's on massive money, and if he's not willing to take a pay cut, that could be another problem that Ruben Amorim is going to face this summer.
So he could well head back to Manchester United, Simon, where it very definitely didn't work out for him, certainly, albeit under Ten Hag.
I mean, I think that was pretty baked in, wasn't it? I mean, I was already assuming that they'd be paying the £5 million, Chelsea, to Man United, because they weren't going to keep him. The reality of it is, I don't know how long he's got left on his contract, but there's going to have to be a view taken by everybody, because Sancho clearly, I mean, he hasn't set the heather on fire at Chelsea. He's had a few moments, and then all of a sudden people started to whip United, because a couple of times at the beginning of the season, Sancho looked like he was going to do something, but Sancho's looked like he's going to do something for a long period of time for lots of people, besides Dortmund, where he has done something.
You're not a paid-up member of his fan club, are you?
No, because I think he's one of those that's got lots of talent and seemingly a view of themselves which other people don't subscribe to, which is he can do as he wants.
Yeah, we're not having them. We've been joined by a man you could consider to be football royalty. World Cup winner, of course, with France, Emmanuel Petit, a good friend of this show. We did a lot with Emmanuel when we were in Germany at the Euros, and since then, Emmanuel's been a regular, not just with us, but with the boys on breakfast as well. And Emmanuel, we're delighted to have you on. Mr. Jordan has one for you, I think, on Ousmane Dembele. Here we go.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the evolution of this player, Emmanuel, because he was a problem child at Barcelona. He was a player that seemed to have a difficulty over there, was going to go on strike. And yet here he is at PSG, leading the line, a mainstay in the team. All the players seem to love him. What do you think the change and the, as I say, the evolution of this player has come from?
Two things. I think... First of all, I think Luis Enrique, his management, is ruthless,
Yeah, don't muck about.
With his players. And I don't know if you remember what happened, when they play at the Emirates Stadium in the group stage. The day before, Dembele was late, for the meeting with the team.
Yeah.
And he was not included, in the first 11. So he said to him, "This is the rules. This is how I see, my team, and if you don't fit in it, you're out of it. The second thing for me that is very important, if you remember, in the last few years when he was playing for Barcelona, he was often injured.
Mm-hmm.
He changed a lot of things, around him. He took a private cooker, nutritionist, a manager, people that can give him advice, day after day, how to be and become a real professional footballer dedicated to this club, the commitment. He has to change his commitment, the way he was living, his life as a professional footballer. And this is not a surprise. Since then, he didn't get any injuries. The whole season he has played, he was there. And if you can have a look on the Paris Saint-Germain season, they had no injuries.
Gee.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. It's unheard of.
It's very amazing because when you play every single 3 days and you won all the trophies, without big players injured,
yeah,
for me, it means a lot. The management is good, but the way he made the turnover into this team, but the way, he put his vision into the players' heads, everybody was behind.
What do you put no injuries down to? We see teams in England like Tottenham that are going through injury crises left, right and centre. Why would PSG, playing the way that they do, with the dynamism they play at and the competitivity that they exude in their own league, in their various cups and in European competitions, why would they be so proficient and not getting injuries?
Preparation, I think, at the start of the season was important because, remember, some players, they play during the European tournament last season. So they had to refresh their mind physically and mentally. And the turnover of the team was perfect, from Luis Enrique. Every single game, he made changement, he made a turnover. But every big games, he always played with the same first 11. And I think, as I said before, Luis Enrique is ruthless. He doesn't want any players, to be in front of him and to do what he wants to do. He will be in front of their faces, just to tell them, I am the boss. You follow my rules. If you don't want to do that, you're out of the team. I don't care if you're here, and the club spends 100 million on you. I don't care how much you earn in wages. If you don't follow what I said, you're out.
Wow. Well, it's certainly working for him. Emmanuel, I see three messages in front of me just come in. There's one. I'll just select one. And it's Charlie saying, I'm a huge Arsenal fan. My dream player at Arsenal would be Ousmane Dembele. I'm quite sure it would be. Here's the thing. On Arsenal, Martin Keown yesterday in studio with us wasn't quite biting, but Thierry Henry has been saying it's now time that Arsenal win something. It's now time Arteta wins something with Arsenal, whether it's the Premier League or the Champions League. Do you concur with that? Is next season crucially important for Arteta?
I think they are not far, to win something, especially in the Premier League, but they fail. They fail always at the end of the season all the time because of injuries. And the lack of depth, on the bench, the options, for Arteta. So I think Arteta and Arsenal, they know exactly what they have to do. They have to reinforce, their team, but more important, they have to keep the spine of the team. I've been listening, hearing things, the last few weeks about some top players, Saliba, for example, or other players that have been linked for a move. I mean, what's the point if you spend money and try to improve and evolve, your team, and then you leave some players, big players, to other place. So I think I can understand what Thierry said, but sooner or later I think Arteta and Arsenal will win something. That means they have to do something very important within the next transfer market. I think they are targeting some top players, but I think they need definitely, they need to change something. And for me, it goes, from options, on the bench, and because of the turnover, Arteta has been playing always with the same first 11 most of the time, without injured players, always the same first 11. So that means you cannot do that, especially when you play for the Premier League. The demands physically and mentally is so high. You need to put a turnover into your team, and he has no options because of the injuries.
So it's down to recruitment, Simon. And they've got to get the recruitment right, then they might win the big one.
Down to recruitment in the end. But what Thierry actually said was, over the last few years, that Man United have been in 5 finals, despite the decline of Manchester United. Yeah. Right, that it is now. It should have happened. Arsenal should have won something, or at the very least, got to finals. Do you concur with that assessment? Yes. You do.
Of course.
Do you believe then, Emmanuel, if he's given some more tools during the summer, some better players, centre forward, and maybe Zubamendi, who we're talking about potentially signing for Arsenal, do you then expect this season having to be a moment for Arteta? He has to win things this season, whatever it is.
For me, I said it at the beginning of the season, last season. I said that it was very important for Arteta to win something with his team. Because how can you manage, to put into the player's mind to repeat the same effort, the same commitment? Look, the last 3 years, they were so close to win the Premier League and they failed. So that means it's very, very difficult, to repeat always, to ask always the same thing from your players. At the end of the day, the players will think, okay, we will do always the same, but at the end of the season, we will lose again, everything. So that means this season was already very important for Arteta to win something, and they didn't, which means the seasons coming for me will be the most important season for us, Arteta at Arsenal, which means that there is no choice. They have to win something. And for me, more important, they have to fight and win the Premier League, which means I don't care what you do on the transfer market, but bring players, with quality, but with the winning mentality. Because I've been very, very upset about some games. I remember, troubles came, when they lost against West Ham at home, and all of a sudden they are losing. They lost big players for months, and then they were losing points at home. And I mean, you cannot afford that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you have to play every single game like a final.
Emmanuel, we were talking at the top of the show about one Bruno Fernandes at Manchester United. Manchester United, who finished the Premier League season 15th, having lost 18 of their 38 matches. Bruno Fernandes, meantime, was the subject of will he stay or will he go? And what we do know is that Bruno Fernandes has reportedly rejected a lucrative £700,000 a week move to the Saudi Arabian club Al Hilal. He said no, and for the time being, it seems, he stays. What would Emmanuel Petit have done?
Bravo. Honestly. No, honestly. Money, runs the world since century now. It's a big matter, into football, players, especially this generation. I won't say that it was not the case back in days, but I think it's becoming more and more important, Money is becoming more important than winning titles and having a great career. And I have to say thank you very much, Bruno, for what you've done, because you could have left Manchester United and take the huge money, the offer on the table was amazing, and he refused it. So that means for me his commitment for the club, his love, for Manchester United, his passion for the Premier League. He wants to play at the highest level, and I think this is remarkable, honestly. I don't know how many players would have done that.
Is it a vote of confidence for Manchester United's reputation or for Ruben Amorim's ability as a coach?
I don't know. That show his love, for football first. I think he put football in front of money. I think his earning, don't be mistaken, He's earning a lot of money at Manchester United. But I think he could have done much more than that, in Saudi Arabia. And I think he still believes into Manchester United. I think he was very, very upset after losing the final against Spurs. He was so upset, with what's happened, during the season so far and the last few seasons as well at Manchester United. He's been the leader of the team since he came, into the club. And as I said, his commitment is 100% for the club. So I think he has received some big signals, from the board and probably from Amorim for the next season, bringing, top players with the right mentality and leaving, showing the door to other players who have not been performing well on that, or even not showing, the right commitment for the club. So again, thank you very much, Bruno Fernandes, because I'm very happy that you're staying at Manchester United in the Premier League. It will be a joy, again, to watch you next season. And if you can be the same leader that you've been, for the last few seasons with other players around you, that could be something different for Manchester United. This club deserves to come back at the right level.
Well, that leads to the obvious question of what you make of Amorim, because you will have heard the utterings of some of the things that he said over the last 6 months. Managers come in to make things better. Normally, he hasn't made it better. He hasn't improved upon what Ten Hag left. He's made it worse. So you putting your player's head on again, when you listen to Amorim speak, do you think there's a manager I'd like to have played for or I would have believed in? Or do you look at him and think, like most of us do, what's he doing? Why is he saying these things? And is he actually going to have the ability to make Man United a competitive side again?
This is a question, it's been the same question for years now at Manchester United, They've been splashing a lot of money on players, names, big names, and without any results. And honestly, since Sir Alex Ferguson left and since Mourinho as well left the club, this team has been struggling with manager, And what is the solution? Are you going to change again the manager? Or are you going to change the mentality of the players?
But don't ask in the general. Don't answer the question in the general, Emmanuel. What do you think about Amorim? You've listened to him the way lots of people listen to him. What do you make of him?
I still believe he's a good manager. But I think he needs to be more ruthless, with his players. In what
way? He's pretty ruthless. I mean, he talks about them being the worst Man United team.
Especially, he did it, with Rashford,
Yeah.
He shows some muscles, and Rashford, has been performing well for Aston Villa as well, since then. And some players who left, the club the last couple of months during the season has been performing well as well outside Manchester United. So what is the problem? Is it the players or is it what's happening inside the club? I think this is something has to change dramatically, into the club, from the board until the pitch. And even the supporters, I mean, they have to put more pressure on their own players, I think that are becoming too nice. I remember back in the days, those top players, when they were not performing well, they were receiving, bad things, from the supporters. So I think Amorim has to change something. He has to put a proper vision on what he wants to do with players, tactically, but as well with the first 11. And this is for me that I didn't see that coming since he arrived. He did a great job, in Portugal, and I think he had some great results, and he has a real identity with his team, in Portugal. But since he came to Manchester United, he changed so many times the first 11. We didn't know what he wanted to do, with his players. I think he lost the confidence from so many players, and those players they didn't show the same commitment on the pitch, and they were not showing unity, into the team. So for me, Amorim, just like Luis Enrique with Paris Saint-Germain, he has to be the architect, of what's happening in the dressing room, but as well on the pitch. That means he has to be more ruthless, with his vision, but as well with the management, with the players.
Emmanuel, in the little time we have left, I think Tottenham Hotspur fans are wondering, well, what is about to happen next? Tottenham, of course, finished the Premier League season 17th. having lost 22 of the 38 matches. Ah, yes, but they win the Europa League final, of course, and they beat Manchester United. What are you guys talking about regards Ange Postecoglou and the French media over there? Where does Emmanuel Petit position himself regards Postecoglou?
Well, he did say that, at the beginning of the season, that he was always winning title in the second season, in charge of the club, and he did it. But I watched the final. What a poor final. Honestly, it was disgusting to watch. But hopefully for Spurs, they saved their season and they will play in the Champions League next season. I think many players have lost confidence with Postecoglou. And I think Postecoglou as well has lost confidence with some players. So I think it's probably time for him, to leave the club.
That's really
that's to the point.
Categorical and to the point. And finally, Emmanuel, many people, whenever I say Emmanuel Petit's on the show, I loved him. What a player at Arsenal and everything. But many forget you played for Chelsea as well. And Chelsea today, we expect them to announce the signing of Liam Delap. A youngster, 22-year-old from Ipswich Town. And this really, again, underlines the way that Chelsea are going, because the average age of the squad, 24 years and 36 days. Liam is 22. Chelsea going in the right direction, you think?
The famous number 9 curse. I mean... Listen, I said it at the beginning of the season. I said that Chelsea will play in the Champions League next season. They did it. The last game, against Nottingham Forest.
Yeah.
They won that game and they qualified. They won the European Cup. I think, if I remember well, I said at the beginning of the season, if they want to improve that team, they have to qualify for the Champions League. They are young. The average age of this team is very young. They have a big march to improve everyone. That means they have to play and to be among the top clubs in Europe, and they have to play in the Champions League. So that will be a huge step for them. Returning to Delap, I don't know if it will be the solution. I think for me, if you look at the top teams, actually, look at the wingers, Paris Saint-Germain, Barcelona, those players, they make differences all the time. For me, the biggest problem for Chelsea, most of people and the media, they are focusing, on the number 9. I think for me, the biggest problem is not the number 9 at Chelsea. The biggest problem is the wingers. They are not bringing what you need, to play and to compete against the big teams, in Europe and in the Premier League. I think they must get much assist, much more goals as well. They have to be a bigger danger, on the pitch. The way Chelsea played, if you don't have those wingers, to bring danger all the time, with the ball, to put pressure on the defenders in their zone, so forget it. You will be focusing always on the strikers.
Yeah.
But the striker depends on the wingers as well.
Yeah. I mean, they forked out on Mudryk, Sterling, Neto. They've given it a go. They're not good enough, are they, in your eyes?
For me, they're not good enough. They are good players, but I think there is something in their mind. They didn't reach the next steps, And people have been focusing since years now on big number 9. Okay, no problem at all. But I think if I remember well, Chelsea has won Champions League and Premier League title with a strong number 9, but as well, the wingers, they were amazing. And this is, for me, the biggest problem at Chelsea.
Okay. Emmanuel, as always, can you believe it? That's 45 minutes with you live, and you never disappoint us in any shape or form. Thank you so much for joining us, mate.
Be careful, huh?
Will Crystal Palace be in Europe next season? Well, of course, yes. Really, at this moment, yes, because they won the FA Cup. But the same Crystal Palace, Simon, are right at this moment heading for an emergency summit with UEFA in a desperate bid to avoid being kicked out of Europe. How can this be? Of course, Palace, we know, secured a place in the Europa League following their FA Cup win over Manchester City. But, and this is a big but, due to rules on multi-club ownership, it could see the likes of Brighton take their place. Because the US businessman John Textor owns around 43% of Palace's shares, but is also the majority shareholder at the French club Lyon, who qualified for the same competition. But UEFA's regulations, you guessed it, prevent two clubs with the same ownership from participating.
Same controlling influence, yeah.
So 2 to 1 doesn't go, and it might be that Palace are in for a rude awakening, or might they be? How do they get around this?
No, I mean, look, I think you don't need to have an emergency summit. You can pick up a telephone and resolve these things, can't you? The fact of the matter is that it's a silly rule, really, because it either means something or it means nothing at all. If you're going to allow clubs to simply have their ownership models restructured so that they put their shareholding in trust for a season, it's just silly, because everyone knows that if that club needed any money during the course of the season, it's likely to be the majority shareholder that puts it in.
Yeah, but those are the rules.
We all know that. I know that. What I'm saying is the ridiculousness of the rules.
I get
because,
that.
Again, Marinakis has stepped aside, didn't he, and said, I'm going to put my shares in trust at XYZ club to ensure that XYZ club isn't compromised. But if XYZ club needed some money during the course of the season, they'd go to the controlling influence, who may not be on paper the controlling influence, but will be the financial controlling influence. So it's all a bit bloody silly. And this idea about multi-club ownership, I understand the reasons why it exists, because it provides some sort of semblance of the integrity of the sport. That's why you can't have the sport being brought into jeopardy around corruption, whether it's refereeing decisions or corruption around football match integrity and betting.
I agree with you.
So
but how do Palace get around it?
Well, they'll just get around it the same way as everyone else has got around it. You know, they'll have a contingency plan. It won't be beyond the wit of man to accept. First of all, I think the construction of Crystal Palace is slightly different. Whilst Parish is no longer the senior shareholder, in fact, never was. But I think there's a constitutional scenario where he has the controlling influence over the football club. And I think we've seen that exhibit itself before when Textor and he had a disagreement about a Premier League initiative around loans, and Palace voted against it. And I think Textor was unhappy with it.
Right.
So I think you've already seen that manifest itself. Now, with these guys that are in a situation, maybe it'll be Leon that compromised, or maybe they'll simply say that ultimately the controlling influences with Parish, he'll park up his shareholding in some sort of trust.
Park up his shareholding.
Or just put it in some sort of trust, which is the same as what Marinakis did. Change the ownership of that shareholding for a period of time and then reverse out of it in a year's time, which makes it farcical. Which makes it, window dressing and optics. So either forget it and don't bother having any rules around multi-club ownership, and run the risk of people saying that moves towards a lack of integrity. And the reason why it moves towards a lack of integrity, because the argument could be if two teams are playing in one tournament, one team might be pressured to play a weaker side or play a weaker outcome because they want the other side for the other ownership model of the other club to benefit. That's where the integrity argument comes. The argument for it is that people will say, well, we want to be able to have younger players developed in different countries, and we want to have a food chain of supply.
Right.
And all the different arguments.
But the bottom line is they'll get round it.
Of course they will.